All right, so I had a comment left on my urethane banning video talking about two-handers, and since now I'm kind of doing more of this podcast commentary type of stuff, I'm always looking for big buzzworthy or contentious topics to debate because that's what I like doing. Not for the drama, but I love playing devil's advocate and arguing from both sides of a hot issue to find the heart or the truth of it. I made a reference to urethane possibly being the equivalent of a belly putter, and I'm going to paraphrase to fairly get to the point of the comment without having anyone miss the intent. I don't want their delivery to poison anyone's perception of the point because it was a passionate or frustrated comment, but I understand what they were getting at. The commenter believed that two-handers, not urethane, was the golf equivalent of the belly putter, and he's been disappointed that I never talked about the impact of the two-handed style on the game of bowling. Here's my reply to his comment, because I did touch on two-handed bowling several times in the urethane ban video, because I do think that the rise of two-handed bowling directly correlates with the urethane debate. So I'm just getting on a roll with this commentary stuff. It's a big topic, and I'll get there eventually. I may not end up with the opinion that you want me to, but I believe I laid out a pretty compelling case for how it happened in this video and what to do to mitigate it. So, short version straight from the video, urethane coming back is why we have so many two-handers now. If urethane wasn't a thing, it wouldn't be so popular because, like I said, too many revs used to be a penalty. Now, because of urethane, it's not. You can just bang on thane and it just buzzes down the lane and walks in. I've also said several times that I like the PWBA better than the PBA because it feels like a truer form of the game. I'm impressed with what two-handers can do with a ball, but two-handers blasting urethane up the track and throwing pins everywhere really does nothing for me. I appreciate the mental game of somebody like Simo, who has boiled it down to its very basics, no pretenses and no fluff. Just stay behind the line and knock the pins down. That's the whole point of the game. It loses something, though, because power has been used to somewhat break the game. But the powers that be let this happen, and that's exactly what I laid out in the video. 9 million members gets business people excited, stuff sprouts up all over the place, equipment technology, lane technology, more oil, that means higher rev rates and stronger balls and more oil. Then finally you get so much oil out there that you need to add a hand to get through it all, that nobody at USBC says, hey, wait a minute, should this be okay? Then they make the conditions flatter, and that presents a problem. But oh, hey, wait, 40-year-old technology that hooks early and walks in that we can just bang on and not have to worry about it. Now everybody's a two-hander because the equipment and conditions that USBC didn't regulate or pay any attention to let them do it. So yeah, I did talk quite a bit about it in the video. Even said near the end that if we go back to simpler equipment and drier lane conditions, being two-handed may not be such a great thing anymore if everything starts hooking off the lane again. So this is a great place to start this video because I think I summed up exactly how I feel about it just in that comment. I'm completely on the fence, and I know that that's not the answer that anyone wants me to have, but I see pros and cons across the board. I believe it was famed coach Bill Hall who laid out some logic on the pro side. Basically, what he said was first we had balls with no holes, then we had one, then two, then three, then some people use all five. We've had no thumbers and palmers and all kinds of things. Using two hands to throw a ball is a natural evolution, and he was shocked that it took as long to happen as it did. In dozens of other sports, we use two hands to do everything. We swing a golf club with two hands. We swing a baseball bat with two hands. We stabilize a basketball shot with an additional hand. We use the other hand in a pool shot, but there's also several sports that we use one hand for. You throw a football with one hand, shot put, darts, javelin, etc. Now, some of those would be fairly difficult to do using both hands, but I digress. I've drilled balls before for people with fused fingers. That was an exciting one. The ring and middle finger was fused from their knuckles all the way up to their cuticles. Pro shops, I want you to just think through how you would actually get that done because fitting balls don't have that option. I drilled balls for people that had lost fingers and either used the first finger and the ring or the first finger in the middle. And yeah, I've even drilled two-handed balls for people that needed to use both because of an injury. That's not why most people bowl with two hands, but there are a surprisingly sizable amount of people who do because they can't physically do it otherwise. Does that make it okay? I don't know. I have plenty of friends who are two-handers who I greatly admire. I've even had several in my videos. I think it's incredibly impressive to watch, but like I said above, I do feel like a game loses something for me when it's overpowered. I just don't know that something being more or less interesting to watch has any bearing on whether something is fair or not. So take something like basketball. I love watching Kobe and Shaq, but I also really loved watching Allen Iverson, Jason Williams, and some guys like Stockton and Hornacek. Now, in bowling growing up, I watched Walter Ray, Norm Duke, Doug Kent was one of my favorites. And on the women's side, CDB, Cara Honeychurch, Tish Johnson. And in today's game, I'm a huge Julia Bond fan. There's something about watching those without the size or power succeed in a game where size and power can be so influential because they understand the game at such a fundamental but also advanced level. Shaq was a beast. I also liked watching Brock Lesnar fight in the UFC, and of the two-handers out there, I'm a big Simo fan. Packy's an amazing dude across the board. Zach Wilkins is on the way up, and I've had the pleasure of being in a tournament group with him the last several years. And then, of course, Belmo has been great to me and is the current go to the two-handers. As much as I love seeing the strategy and sixth sense and the laser accuracy the lower power bowlers employ to still get the job done, I also love seeing people strip away the nonsense and get right down to brass tacks. Now, like I said about Simo, I love that it seems to me like he does that kind of thing like they show Harry Varden do in The Greatest Game Ever Played. Gets up on the tee, blocks everything out of his mind, and makes it simple. I think that's what Simo does. He gets up and knocks pins down. And in a game where so many people get so significantly in their own way and get so wound up about the tech details and the policies and procedures and wrap themselves around a tree trying to calculate it all, Simo is tin cup. He gets bowling just as well as a Walter Ray or a Norm Duke or a Carolyn Dorin-Ballard does. He's just a product of his era while they're products of theirs. Now, Walter Ray throws the ball one-handed. He started throwing it two-handed too, but he notoriously doesn't have great form. You'd have to call his game classic, one of the most recognizable and iconic ones ever, but he does a lot of things wrong. If he went undercover to a coach that somehow didn't know him, they'd try to change virtually everything, but he's also stripped everything away and made it simple just like Simo does. I know I'm doing a lot of philosophizing or pontification. Somebody threw that at me a few weeks ago. I mean, if the shoe fits right, but I'm getting there. Two-handed bowling does kind of break the game, like I mentioned, though. Shaq did the same thing, but you really can't put a limit on size. Basketball has never really evolved, though. I think that we'd have raised the goal or shrunk the rim or done something by now. But Shaq was so big, he could just walk all over everyone. Couldn't shoot free throws, though, so then we had Hack-a-Shaq, and while it was kind of dirty strategy, the only real way to fight it is that bro just needed to get better at free throws. Or, no steroids in baseball. Consistently, they'd constantly walk hitters like McGuire or Sosa or Bonds. I can't condone steroid use at all, but Mac hit 50 out his rookie year as a toothpick, and steroids don't help you see and hit the ball like Bonds. They may keep you injury-free and in the lineup more often and help get some more over the wall, but Bonds was one of the best hitters ever regardless. And then you have a guy like Junior, where I don't even have to say his full name because y'all know who I'm talking about. He didn't take a thing, paid for it with several injuries, but still has the sweetest swing you ever saw and still managed one of the greatest Hall of Fame careers ever. My biggest issue with the two-handed game is not two-handers or the abundance of power. It's the existence of guys like Mike Miller back in the day, Tom Doherty today, and then traditional one-handed monsters like Robert Smith and E.J. Tackett. I call Robert Smith the original two-hander because, sure, while he's an anomaly that most people have to use two hands to equal his one, he still exists. And as rev rates have gone up, you have many more one-handed bowlers that can, if not equal, get close enough in power to the two-handers. I've linked a Maximum Bob compilation if you want to see how disgusting Robert Smith was. Now we have bowlers like E.J. Tackett, A.J. Chapman, Mikey Schleybaugh, who you may not have heard of yet, but who you're going to know right now, and literally dozens of others who absolutely shit all over the ball with one hand. You might say, well, just like basketball, some players have the size, some don't. You've got to play the cards you're dealt, and using two hands to get there just isn't acceptable. As something I've personally dealt with, the left and right side of the lane can feel like a similar topic. Because of the way that bowling's set up, you experience the game significantly different on the left versus the right. There's a lot of things I miss about the right, but am glad to be rid of, just like there are plenty of things I hate about the left, but also appreciate. In other sports, it doesn't really matter. Pool is the same, darts are the same, golf is the same, basketball, baseball, so on and so forth. Everything is just mirrored more or less. Bowling seems to be the only sport or one of the few where using one hand or the other significantly alters your experience. Now, don't at me because I didn't spend hours researching every other sport and spend a paragraph breaking it down. Please do let me know if there is some other sport that applies, though, for reference, because it would be interesting to dig into and might be relevant. But let's stay on topic here. Transition is the name of the game on the right, and because of the way the game is today, righties spend very little time competing on a fresh lane condition that was put down with a specific goal in mind, while lefties will spend the vast majority of their time on fresh lane conditions. This can be either good or bad for lefties. Most of the time it's very beneficial on easier lane conditions and a nightmare on tougher ones. The righties just have to survive the fresh on sport conditions and then take advantage when they break down and open up, while the lefties just have to split boards all day. However, if the shot starts out nice, lefties will have it all day and righties will start to lose it at some point. I see a much larger difference in either advantage or disadvantage in bowling with one hand or the other than I see between EJ and Belmo. And this is yet another sticking point for me in the conversation. The power game can cause problems for people without it. So if you have power and can hook the lane, you're going to wreck the shot for straighter bowlers who then can't move in and get away from the transition. The ball then either hooks at their feet or doesn't have the wheels to get back up the hill if they try to move in. But I think the main argument against two-handers is the extra control that a second hand on the ball can offer. Now, I've tried two-handing. It's not easy. It was actually easier for me to use an entirely different hand or arm than try to use my dominant coordinated side with the assistance of the other hand. Matter of fact, if I couldn't bowl lefty anymore, I'd have to quit because I'd never learned two-handed well enough to even mess with it. It impresses me because I can't do it, and I don't understand how people can. My hesitation on saying get rid of it, though, is that we should be looking at the product or the result. EJ is the best bowler on the planet right now. And he's what people consider a traditional style. Andrew Anderson is on top of his game right now. Kevin McCune's absolutely disgusting, and there are other younger up and coming bowlers that are still one-handed and very impressive. TJ Rock is a beast. Alec Keplinger has an extremely good game. I could write another paragraph listing dozens more. However, let's look at it this way. Say for the sake of argument that we get rid of the two-handers. Maybe they are the equivalent of belly putters. There are still a lot of good traditional putters, and that shouldn't be an excuse for saying, well, this player putts as well traditionally as this player putts with a belly putter, so what's the issue? The belly putter was determined to unfairly benefit the player who wouldn't otherwise be as good without it. Anchoring it to your body was judged to go against the intended nature of golf and be somewhat of a shortcut for players who weren't as good at putting with a free swing. That's one of the gray area things that I admittedly struggle with. So that's why I struggle with this topic in general, and probably why I haven't talked about it before, because I just make everybody mad because most people are pretty clearly on one side or the other. I greatly appreciate the intelligence and strategy of anyone thinking outside the box or significantly simplifying something to succeed. I greatly value the mental side of anything to begin with. So I have trouble drawing a line between strategy that should be fair game and something that crosses that line. When we're looking at the overall result, though, if I'm getting there, I feel the same way watching Robert Smith or EJ that I do watching Simo or Belmo. Seeing a game that I watched be played growing up with touch and finesse be reduced to dump trucking a ball at the pocket and throwing pins everywhere is both awe-inspiring and disappointing, even uninteresting, but I love it and hate it at the same time. I love it because it's so smart. You don't get style points, you don't get integrity points, you get the pins you knock down. In today's game, dump trucking a ball at the pocket and throwing pins everywhere is the best way to be successful. And as long as they're going to allow that in the rules, I'm in support of it because I hate gentleman's rules kinds of things because it's pretentious and arrogant. I bowled in a scratch league a couple decades ago that was all hardcore and serious until the guys that had run over the league for years started getting older and less successful. Then, of course, the rules started to soften up, and staunch supporters of scratch bowling and just get out and practice and throw it better actually introduced team average caps and even handicap to try to maintain their grip on the league. You set the rules, you don't then get to say, oh, well, we didn't think about this or we didn't intend this or anything else. Now, sometimes you don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes you can't consider all the angles and all the issues that might arise from a decision. That's why, as we all go through life, we constantly have to make adjustments. We fail and we learn from it, but we all know the difference between people who screw up and learn and adjust and people who keep screwing up repeatedly and never learn. USBC is that friend who you constantly have to drive around because every time they get their license back, they get another DUI and lose it again. Two-handed bowling is legal. It's been that way for a long time, and it doesn't make a difference how I personally feel about it. It's a very smart, just looking at it technically, just removing the opinion. It is a very smart and effective way to knock pins down. That's the name of the game, and I will defend it as such as long as it's legal. That doesn't mean that I can't see the point from the other side. I think it does somewhat break the game or give a significantly larger part of the bowling population a lot more power than they would otherwise have. Maybe it shouldn't have been allowed. maybe people should be forced to generate their power with one hand or just deal with not having as much of it. If two hands were banned, I could come up with several points in favor of that as well. However, just like I don't think that banning urethane solves the point or solves the issues that USB-C put out there, I don't think banning two hands solves the issues that those who are against it have either. It is hard to hear bowlers like Matt McNeil lament all the years spent developing an effective game for a certain era just to have all that skill and talent wiped out by the new wave of the power game. Bowling is a game that everyone should be able to succeed in, but because of the USB-C's lack of leadership and governance, we're in the situation that we're in. Same thing that I said in the urethane video applies here. Dropping oil volumes takes care of transition because nobody's going to be throwing a ton of surface, and rev rate isn't great when everything's hooking off the planet. It reduces the right to left disparity. Being two-handed wouldn't be such a great thing anymore because everything would hook too much. You'd have to learn how to bowl and manipulate a weaker ball to get it through the pins the right way because it won't do the work for you. We would once again have a game where the skill of the player rules and where multiple styles and sides of the lane can more fairly compete because there isn't such a significant advantage to having one style or another or being on one side of the lane or another. And if you said, well, then thank you for making my point, the point has been made repeatedly that two hands plus urethane on today's conditions is virtually a cheat code, but it's not cheating if it's legal, and it's legal until it's determined that it's cheating. The power game currently rules, and USB-C allowed it to happen, but I can't be mad at anyone who takes full advantage of what's allowed within the rules to succeed, and I say more power to them for not being hipsters and purists who are just arrogant and angry like Sheldon in The Big Bang Theory, who uttered one of my favorite lines, "They were having fun wrong." That's exactly what the haters sound like. But once again, to flip back the opposite direction, I still understand exactly what they're talking about, exactly why they're mad, and exactly what their point is, because I kind of feel it too. Now, I think I beat this far into the ground far enough already. And if I get, if you think I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth to make everyone happy, I'm really not. I'm actually standing in the middle of the road about to get run over here, just like I have been with string pins. And by the way, just wait for that video too, because it's coming and it's a similar flavor. I'm just someone who lives in the gray area because I think too much to have super strong opinions one way or the other on a lot of different topics. I think things are a lot more complicated than that. And this is one of those situations that's complicated for me. So sorry to the commenter and anyone else if I didn't take your side or delivered a disappointing opinion, but this is what I think. And I have to be honest about it because that's all I know how to do. So thanks for watching and may the strikes be with you.